Hello. Hi. So I'm Akash. I run a research lab called Sound Codes. I uh, operate as sound artist, and I make microphone and Eurorack synthesizers and do like other stuff. So this convolution has been the body of my work because this is something I've been doing since 2012. Uh, when we say convolution, what do we mean by convolution? So in a sound or in a music term, convolution has hosts a very specific meaning, but in computation, convolution we use in general all the time for many complex calculations. So let's talk about convolution from an audio sense. Uh, you can use a speaker and have a microphone in a space. And if you produce a sound like this sound is nothing but a logarithmic sine sweep going all the way from 10 hertz to your sampling rate, which can be anything 24,000, 48,000, or 96,000 based on at what you're sampling. Once this sound has produced from the speaker, it enters the space. All of these frequencies interact with the material and the geometry of the space. Some of the energy, like the amplitude of that specific frequency, is absorbed. Some is reflected back into the space. And now this dance of frequency keeps occurring for n number of times till we have nothing left dancing in the space. Now, if we use convolution as a process, we come to know, okay, how the room precisely sounds. And the other word which is used for this is impulse response. This is what we use in general in modern DSP for convolution reverb. And like in augmented reality, in VR, in gaming, we are always introducing realistic reverb sounding compared to algorithmically generated reverbs. But from a human sense, I like to think sound is physical because all of this language, all of this, the choice of my language, the words, is very new, very modern. And a lot of these historical spaces were designed purely by listening. The architects or the designers were able to tune the space by having this ability to acute hearing. And over time, we have, as a collective, we have a lot of lived experiences on those space. And this is not just Indian idea, this is a global idea. We have examples of such spaces in across all the cultures. This is some of the examples. Like we find specifically designed spaces for sound almost everywhere. And convolution, or like this impulse as an idea, gives us an insight into how can we hear the past. Can we listen to the stone? Can we say what would be the lived experience of the past? Or can we augment ourselves in that experience now in this reality? These are some pictures, but like there are like tons of examples of such acutely designed spaces where listening was the core ability. And we can use this data, this idea, and we can just travel back in time, and here sound becomes the medium. Today, we we have bunch of institutes, bunch of other individuals who are researching into this aspect. But the major problem, what I see in this idea is when we deal with history, your quality of data is as good as the research related to the history. The objective, what we achieve afterwards, is also dependent upon the context of the current world. We would perceive it with the contemporary mindset. some data of what I gathered during traveling through India helped me understand certain practices, certain approaches. So this object, what you see, is a bronze megaphone. It weighs roughly 680 kilogram, and it's a acoustic amplifier. Like it amplifies human speech, and it really does. So here, while listening to the stones, while gathering this impulses of these old sites, I came across questions. How would a king address to the court? How would an army general address to the army in an open field? And then what common link I found across culture was this sort of a cone geometry is universal. Every culture had some or the other horn structure. And horn as a geometry, this cone is super efficient to create this simple idea of impedance mismatch, which is nothing but speech amplification. So my idea was, okay, can I create a simulation model where I can see the limitations of the geometry? What if I am saying I am amplifying speech? What is the max? So in a limited research, I just did it for 3 years, but I figured like, okay, 2.4 meters is what I think is the limitation, and this 3D sculpt, like I had to do that somewhere around 60 iterations of the object, and afterwards I could not see any change in efficiency, and if I increased more, I would see decrease in efficiency. But anyway, so just the simple idea here is listening and listening through ears, because we have lost the ability. We tend to hear through our eyes. Another image of the bronze object. Now, moving on. Today, we have this information, but today, when we look at it, all these historic sites, the heritage of what we speak of, where we have spent this collective time, or we have shared experience, or we have a lived experience over time, these all sites are hyper local. I need to physically visit. Is there a way can we have this sort of a experience in a global sense? Convolution on the web allows us to approach that notion where we can have this experience in a collective sense. Like the web audio APIs are super easy, super simple to approach, and we can just go about it. Like a simple idea would be this is on the web, you guys can access it. This is a project I did as a part of art festival in 2017. So I guess I think my computer audio is mute. Yeah, it's on. It's on.
Yeah.
So this is super simple. There's a latency because I'm talking to my computer microphone. But it's a simple idea where now we can, from Bangalore, we can just go to this tiny cave in Rivona. I just augmented myself in this tiny cave. Or
Or
if I like some other space, let's go to a
underground water
underground
tank.
water tank.
It's a huge. So let's finish. Connection please wait.
It's part of The
The image what we see here is something what I call as
Khan. It's I had access to roughly 800 human years. This was not, I mean, not organic human years. I mean the digital anatomy. It would be cool to have them, but yeah, I just had digital file. Mm, but yeah, so basically, if we look at humans and perception of sound, it differs. Like we have cultural specific perception of sound. Not all of us are uh, willing or being able to perceive certain sounds. Like for instance, Gagaku music from Japan is discarded by majority because of the pure nature of the microtonal existence, or like the way they approach dissonance. Uh, we like harmony, but at the same time, culture-specific people may move away from harmony and explore dissonance or microtonal. Here in Karnataka or Tamil Nadu, Carnatic music is there. Even they have like microtonal nature. Like they don't follow standard Western 12-tone scale. They have like their own 17-tone scale. Anywho, the roughly 800 human years I could examine, and this was across culture like African, Caucasian, Siberian, Tibetan, Indians. And then you can write a simple software, like a simple script, which would compute average. How does a average human hear? Because the shape of my ear, the shape of my ear canal, the shape of my pinna would absolutely, definitely change my perception. The canal would add a resonating frequency to everything I am perceiving. So can we have an average of hearing? So something this I constructed in 2016, and I, after analyzing it for further like another 5 years, I feel now comfortable. It's ready. So yeah, this data set is mixed using some really high-end microphones and the Khan, the microphone I built. It's but it's just the idea of augmenting yourself in time. Thank you. That's it. Thank you. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, how did you choose the location within all these places of where you wanted to place the mic? Was there some kind of documentation that spoke about maybe that's where like people used to speak from usually in that area, or was there some factor by which you decided where you wanted to keep the mic while recording the impulse response?
So while recording impulse response, there's no one absolute position. So while doing it, I do take like more than 100 readings.
100
So I,
positions.
yes, and
Okay.
I take a note, okay, now my speaker is center, my microphone is 5 meter off center, 5 meter center, 10 meters, depending on the size, shape of the room. So, but also I am mindful while gathering this data, because if I go to certain caves, I love caves in India. So many of the caves we saw like in 6, 7, 8, 9, 80, like this large 400 years, we saw like an influence of Hinduism, tribal Hinduism, mainstream Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism, and this all spiritual belief of Sufi and Tantra and all those things. This created like a very pollinated area where this you had this different beliefs acting in one place. So when the Jains and the Buddhists came to those caves, they used pitta. Like pitta is something like a teaching ground where the teacher would sit and students would like face the teacher. So this would meant if I keep my speaker over there, I can simulate a speaker, and if I rotate my microphone, I know the listener's environment. So there's no one position, but yes, I do keep a note. So if I do a installation or I do some like license it to some game or like I don't know VR thing, then these specific data sets can be tagged rather than an average.
Good. Thank you. Thanks.
Hi, Akash. You talked about in the past people listened with their ears, and now we are listening with our eyes. I think it's awesome. So could you do you have any ideas about how they used to listen with their ears, especially that they didn't have the tools like you have at your disposal that you've created yourself and so on. When those tools, these sort of computer analysis tools were not available, how was their listening so acute and good that they could design these spaces?
A simple example would be internet is filled with like one very popular idea, which is anechoic chambers. If you visit them in 20 minutes, you feel uneasy and you have to escape it because you start hearing whatever. My experience in anechoic chamber is exactly opposite. Perception-wise, if I am visiting high mountains, early sunrise, it's absolutely zero reflection. I hear absolute silence. There's no wind. I'm in a ridge. There's no reflection. Many caves are not really anechoic, but 3, 4 econic, like only 2 or 3 early reflections I would observe. So these sort of physical lived experiences we don't do. Adding on more, publicity, it's a super big business. Before this, all sorts of advertisement used sound as a medium. Image or language was not really like this image. I would say even the language in a printed form is an image because type is a great design. But all sorts of publicity was sound-based across culture. We had specific sounds related to specific skill set also, like the person who would refill your mattress with cotton created a very specific sound. Person selling, they all publicized with the sound. Now we create noise, but we also illuminate everything with LEDs or typeface or like hyper design visual ideas. So similarly, moving, biology also plays a role. When we were hunters and gatherers, we had to highly rely on our perception of sound. Because if I am moving in a forest or a jungle, I have to be aware what's happening in my left, right, front, back. Because it's bushy, wooded area, I can't really see. But I have to be attentive. I have to have acute hearing if I want to live beyond 30 or 20 for this matter. Now, I don't have that concern. Over the last 200 years, this concern is absolutely deleted. I am comfortable. I am cold, I can increase heating. So like this, we have so many these small factors which have trained us to not hear.
Coming to the matter of the hour, how do you sustain yourself?
I do a lot of things. So this, half of the time I get some grants from random institutions. I sell my microphone. I sell some synthesizer like Eurorack. I am diving deep into electronics. I'm enjoying it.
Who do you sell your mics to?
Mostly artists at the moment. But I feel the use case is super broad, but I market only through word of mouth. Or like, yeah. People who know me, they tell about others about me, and randomly I get an email saying, bro, I want a mic. I said, okay, cool. Give me 20 days, I'll send it to you.
I've seen you over the years, and I've seen that your model of working and, sustaining yourself has been one year after the other, if I'm assuming it right, in the sense that you don't really save and, I don't know, or you don't have any, I don't know if you have an inheritance, but I'm just saying that do you ever get clouded by the fact that, this might maybe get difficult or something, or maybe there's no takers, or um,
I think difficult is communication. I think takers are definitely there because binaural technology is not new. I think it's all came out of a French paper from 57. Newman were the first individuals to develop their mic. It's a beautiful mic, but what differentiates between me and Newman is the canal idea, because for me, perception is hyper important, not just the technicality of stereo sound or this binaural sound. So just because of this unique factor, I think there are many takers, but how do I communicate to them? How do I reach? That's a very different business and a marketing idea. Second, the point of sustaining is, yes, it is definitely difficult. I am highly driven by certain ideas, but not all are sustainable. Earlier in the discussion panel we had, so in 2015, I had a program in Mumbai called Music Tech Sundays. It was running for 1 year, and it was awesome because I never had much of new audience, but whoever came for the first session, they kept coming for all the sessions. So it was like a super small, tiny, warm community. There were some people from the Mumbai film industry as well, but a lot of other hackers, tinkerers like me. And I had little support, like this one Indian audio company called Modi Digital. They supported me. Then Abbey Road Studio, London, they also supported me. But having good people to speak, you need to make them travel. That's super difficult. So that's the point. The feasibility is absolutely there, but sustenance is not really there. So what I do is I do 10 different things. I get some funds here, I spend over here. And it's total chaos. I am like a monkey with a symbol.
Hi. Hi, Akash.
Hi.
So, to do with the point you were mentioning about how, in general, people have, people tend to listen less and visual is more, right? This is more like an observation, I guess. But what I feel is that difference in visual and auditory is seen in almost all multimedia industries. Like, I think anybody who's worked on films, the audio for films, it's like the last thing many of the times, right?
Yeah.
Including budget-wise.
Yeah. But that's, I think, education also. People are not educated to pay attention to sound.
So what I found was also, I'm from a tech background, and I'm not done that much music-related work, but at the initial stage for almost all the music software, excluding a few, the professional softwares, there's a lot of overwhelm when you try to do something a little bit beyond basic. There's just so many tools, so many visual cues and things at a professional level. I understand where it comes from, the legacy of actually having the hardware with you. But what surprised me actually at ADCx is, and at the Music Hack, is there are quite a few visual people here. Their profession is visual, and they're interested in the music. So I feel there is a gap, at least in getting a lot of people into this domain, where the getting feedback audio-wise is instant if you know what you're doing, but visual feedback captures a lot of people's attention. So I was just wondering about is there any, what do you feel about the development in that phase? Is it stagnant? Is there scope? Just a curiosity question, I guess.
There's no real development. I think it's purely education. That's it. We have to educate ourselves just to listen and understand also the difference between hearing and listening. Alexa listens or Alexa hears? Do we know that for sure?
Thank you.
I want to add to the visual versus oral thing. Ties into pretty much the hunter-gatherer example that you gave. 20, let's say 30, 40 years ago, right? There was not this much light pollution, and TVs were also non-existent. Today we go into bed, like we sleep like by looking at Instagram or some YouTube or Netflix or whatsoever, and somehow that overload of visual stimulus has somehow trained us to respond to visuals even more than sound per se. And the kind of sounds we hear on a daily basis is we've learned to trivialize it. It's mostly noise for the most part. You have to find a place to to actually hear natural sounds that people have always been hearing, like not less than half a century ago, and I think that's why visual has more appeal than audio, even though like on a survival evolutionary basis, like sound is more important.
I would add a little thing. There's an individual called Helmholtz. He coined a word in psychoacoustics called auditory roughness. Visual is more universal. Audio is not. Sound is not. As previous example, Carnatic music, you play it back someone in North India, they would hate it or say ask you to like shut it. That's purely is, am I able to hear what's being played? No. So, but if I if I put a same rag or a tal text in the type or the script being used and put it across, I might not hate it. I might just ignore it. But if I play back the sound, I would hate it. If I'm not used to hearing that thing. Don't you think it's visually true too? Visually, it's easy to ignore. And it's easy to comprehend also. Yeah.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Just to add on to him, I forgot the book, but it claims that all senses are a touch-based senses. Visual is the least touch-based, whereas everything else is a touch-based sense. I'll share the book in the Discord when it gets created. But anyway, coming back, I want to ask a question related to your presentation. Have you been approached by conservation people taking your work, like say a monument which is being demolished for whatever reasons, or it's not so important and they want to conserve that? Have they approached you saying, okay, we'll use your research, saying, in our efforts to conserve that particular monument or a space or a cave or anything like that? Or did you think in that direction yourself?
Yes, I do. I work extensively with Indian department called ASI, Archaeology Survey of India. But we have to know ASI has no money. If India, we talk about heritage, there's so much, there's tons of it, and they don't have even a money to put a proper board stating, okay, this thing was constructed in 800 or 880, 780, 280. It just has one generic board, which is heritage site. If you like deface or like whatever, some section, that's it. There's no name of the village or the place or whatever. But saying that, I was invited by this institute called Klingenthal Ostengam in Basel. They had a church which was built in 1400. So I had collected the data of the church earlier. So they used my data to restore the church. Now the church acts as a cultural space, but the attic of the church, we tried to make it sound the way it was. Because most of the time, this impulses, we can think of it as a snapshot of sound in time. We know how a structure looked like in 1900s from either a sketch or a painting or a photograph, but we don't know how it sounded. So if we can have a slight computational comparison, because ISO is so nice, they have released a list of natural decay rate of all the known materials. So I know limestone over a 500 years would decay in certain rate. Of course, humidity, temperature, human intervention, they all play a role. But I have an idea, and that change perceptible? Like if there's a 0.01% deviation in my data and the reality of limestone, so is that 0.01%? Can I perceive it? Is that what sort of a sound difference is it creating an absorption coefficient or the reflection coefficient? That's another question, because again, like there's certain laws, right? Like RT60, there's like tons of math and law which we can follow for our personal experience. So yes, indeed, but Indian government has no money. They do care. The ASI department is operated by like what, 6 people maybe, and that's it. Like it's super small, super poor.
In interest of time, we have to move on. And
Yes.
thanks, Akash, for a interesting.
Cheers.